Today we're going to be looking at procrastination, a very common problem, and how you can turn it into something useful and enjoyable action instead of putting things off.
Okay, I like that. So we don't want to be putting things off. We want to be getting things done, and we just want to share some ideas on how you can make that more effective and enjoyable.
Absolutely.
Your life will be better if you feel you're getting things done, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would, definitely. Now, the interesting thing is, what is procrastination? We all know what it is. It's putting something off that has to be done and putting it off because it feels too much trouble, too daunting, too much of a problem to deal with now. But the problem with it is, as soon as we put it off, it becomes what's known in hypnosis and NLP terms, an open loop. We need to close the loop so that problem is gone now and we have room to deal with something else. And when we don't close the loop, it looms, it's hovering, it's in the background. And you know how horrible it is when something must be done and we put it off and put it off because it's going to be unpleasant, or even sometimes it isn't. We think it's going to be unpleasant.
Yeah, we are. Exactly. So actually, maybe we can just talk about the open loops and closing old loops first, and then we'll go to the other points that we have here. So yeah, actually, Timothy September, our head of coaching for Mike Mandel Hypnosis, mentioned this to us, and it's a very good point. When you have a bunch of, especially little things that aren't done, that need to be done, you've procrastinated on little things. It'll be more likely for you to now procrastinate on other things. It is like a sense of overwhelm in your brain. So
totally
the more
true.
mess, the more crap that's going on, the more likely you are to continue to procrastinate on other important things. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you've got a project that you're working on in your business, or it could be even like a hobby project at home that you want to start. You want to go to Home Depot and buy the lumber for that renovation of your studio or something. I don't know. Well, if you have, I need to go on and click that DocuSign. That's actually one thing on my inbox right now. I have to click sign some documents on a DocuSign.
Boy, that sounds difficult.
From my accountant.
Better put it off.
Yeah, and I know it's just sitting there in my inbox, and I will do it later today as soon as we're done. But when these little things that literally take me 60 seconds to do aren't done, they become noise in my brain, and they are open loops, and they're likely to interrupt other important things. So the first thing you can do is just think of what are the little things that you haven't closed the loop on that you could easily just go close the loop. No pain, no hassle. You've just been avoiding it because it's no fun.
And it frees up the RAM in your brain right away.
Do it. Yeah.
Frees up the RAM. Let me give you an example, real life example from my own life, just in the last couple of weeks, Chris. Remember, we got the new car. They put it under my personal name instead of my business name. That was a mistake. Then we were up at the cabin. In order to get the car switched over, there was a lot of steps, which included having to take the car for a safety check, even though there was only 6,000 kilometers on it. So we had to take both cars for safety checks. Then we had to go to Service Ontario and do all the stuff. I dreaded it. But here's the problem. The safety check lasts, I think, 36 days. So it was counting down and counting down. And you know when it gets closer and closer?
You were putting off finishing the job.
Because I thought it was going to be onerous. I thought we'd be waiting there for 3 hours. We couldn't get an appointment at Service Ontario. It was easy. It was done. It took 2 appointments, but it was no problem. But here's the thing, bro. The sense of relief of that loop being closed was immeasurable. And that's why this is crucial.
And actually, it's a really good time to reinforce the idea that people tend to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And so you thought this was going to be painful and put it off until the clock was going to run out on your 36-day buffer. When you were down to say, it's been 33 days, I have 3 more days. Now your brain is saying, hey, if you don't do this now, it's going to be way more painful because you've got to go and do this safety check all over again.
This is the key point with 2 cars as well. Now, this is the key point, because what typically happens is we put it off because it feels too difficult, too much stress. The emotions get worse and worse. And finally, the stress of not doing it bypasses the stress of doing it. And that's when we typically act. But that's not an efficient way to run our lives.
No, it isn't.
To wait for pain to build up to a crazy point.
So here's an interesting thing that you can start doing. We're going to just briefly mention the idea of habit stacking.
I like this.
So one thing that you can do to avoid procrastinating is to take a habit that you're already doing and stack something else on top of it. Now, I can't remember who came up with the concept, but it was well written about in a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And so it's a super simple concept. The idea being you have a habit of doing something and you want to develop a new habit. All you do is bolt the two together, attach the two together. And I think one of the examples he gives in the book, or a common example that is often used, is let's say you want to get in the habit of flossing. You're already in the habit of brushing your teeth. So you simply decide, well, when I'm about to brush my teeth, I will floss them first and then brush my teeth. After a number of days, I don't know the science behind it all, but whatever, some number of days, it just becomes a new habit. A new habit is basically a neural pathway in your brain anyway, right? It's just you have a trigger that something triggers you that, oh, it's time to, it could be, you walk up to your bedroom, you're about to go to bed, you run your tongue over your teeth and it reminds you, time to brush those teeth.
Yeah.
And so you floss and then you brush and they become enjoined and boom, there you go. So that's habit stacking.
So that's a useful thing to do, is find something else that you're already doing habitually and stacking it.
Right.
With
so I'll give you, this is how you can avoid creating all these little open loops. And I'll give you a simple example in our own business, in the Mike Mandel hypnosis business. One of the things that was happening frequently is we'd get questions. Someone would send in an email to support, and that support question might be, whatever, something that's not well answered on our website, and it would get answered. And then every once in a while, it's like, oh yeah, we should update our FAQ documentation, or we should
take into account all the other questions.
We should update the documentation that makes this stuff clear so that the questions don't come in the first place, because wouldn't it be nicer to delight customers by giving them clear answers so they don't even have to come to you and wait for an email reply.
Sure.
They just get their own answer really quick. Or in the near future, AI tools that allow them to ask a question and the AI answers because it's trained on the answer. Well, writing the answer was the habit. Now, someone's writing that answer and hitting send. Well, as a business manager, wouldn't it make sense for me to go, oh, great, here's what you do. You're going to hit send, then you're going to copy and paste that answer into this document here that now becomes our archive.
Right.
So that's the new habit. We're already doing the reply, therefore add this thing in. So that's a way to not feel this creeping sense of overwhelm that, oh, I have to go through all those sent items, grab all those old emails, copy them all into a document. It's easy stuff, but it starts to feel like I don't want to do it, right? So you just do it in little increments, so you're creating a closure of these loops before they're left open.
That's brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant. Now, another thing you can do is start at the end. So if there's something you're putting off, I could have done this with the Service Ontario car thing if I'd thought about it, and I would definitely handle it differently now. You think of the end. Go into the experience at the end. In your mind, fully associated into yourself, like looking out of your own eyes. You're not seeing yourself like in a movie. You're inside yourself and you're thinking, the event's over. I've done this. I've gone to Service Ontario. I've done this and this. I'm walking out the door. I feel amazing. It's done. I'm free of that. No, just take time to enjoy that feeling and then come back to the present and go, well, what actually prevents me from getting that feeling? Just the fact that I haven't done it. Get out there and do it.
So you're imagining being at that
resolution, a good resolution.
That target state. We've talked about present state, target state. So you're imagining being at that target state and then going, oh, okay, well, all I got to do is take these little actions and then I'm there.
And come back and bring that feeling with you. Yeah. And go and do the event.
Exactly. Like tap into the emotions that other you feels when that job is done.
And you can tell because you can check your ecology on it. You can say, okay, I'm going to go to Service Ontario, whatever, this afternoon. How do I feel about that? I feel good because it's going to be over. If you build a strong enough physical response, a strong enough kinesthetic the feeling of how great it is after the fact, as though you're already there, now bring that feeling back to the present with you.
Right. So how do you deal with someone who puts off doing that?
That's very good. Remember when I was a therapist, I only dealt procrastination with that a couple of times with other people, but I came up with the idea of using the program against itself. So they're great at procrastinating. People would say, I'm a terrible procrastinator. I'd say, well, it looks to me like you're an excellent procrastinator. You're terrible at getting things done. And they go, oh, yeah. I say, well, why don't you use that to your advantage? Well, how can I do that? Why don't you put off procrastinating until later? And sometimes you see people, that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can imagine, they probably can too. Now let's look at this whole thing of front end loading stuff that's unpleasant.
We've got two great final points here.
Okay, sure.
This will be great. Yeah.
This one is good because one of my agents in the past, Kay White, lovely woman, got me a ton of shows in great theaters and stuff, got me in Australia. And she had a really great way of dealing with unpleasant things because she found likewise that she would procrastinate if there was something that she didn't want to deal with. Let's say there was a cancellation of an event and she had to phone an act and tell them. Or worse than that, there's a snowstorm coming and the act doesn't want to drive. This kind of thing.
And
she's got to bring the bad news.
You've got to tell the venue.
And I said, I hate doing stuff like that. She said, oh, I do too. She said, I've got a new way. And I said, what? Tell me. She said, I front end load it. I said, what do you mean? She said, here's all the things on my to-do list. What's the most unpleasant thing? I do that right now. Not in 10 minutes, right now.
Especially if it's easy. It's going to take you like a minute, right?
Yeah. And then the sense of
I have
relief.
to make a phone call and give bad news to someone. It's not my fault. There's no reason I need to feel bad. I just have to do, but I have to do it. And if I don't do it, it's going to get worse to the point of the avoiding of that near-term little pain is going to become so much more painful. Why didn't you tell me earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
Why did you wait so long? Now you're a jerk, right?
But if you front end load it, you get a sense of relief. And guess what? The other tasks on your list
builds momentum.
are easier now. Yeah, you've got momentum going. What about the final point?
I really like this, do the bare minimum at first. Because this is like the momentum, getting the nasty things out of the way also builds momentum, but doing the bare minimum builds momentum. And so we can actually tie this in with the idea of systems instead of goals.
All right.
In Scott Adams' book, Reframe Your Brain, he talks about how instead of having a goal of going to the gym and working out 5 times a week, he just had a system in place. And the system was, well, on these days and times, I grab my gym gear and I drive to the gym. Now, that doesn't mean if he has a crap day and doesn't feel like working out, that's fine. But the system is we go and work out. So if the do the bare minimum, let's say the system is, I do 5 minutes I do the bare minimum. What's the minimum? Well, I'm trying and failing to write a book. Okay, well, what's the bare minimum? Decide what that is. I'm going to open my Google Doc and I'm going to write for 5 minutes some thoughts of what's going on.
Even the first sentence. Yeah. It's amazing.
Just anything. And just agree, I'm going to, read a book this month. That might seem like a lot, right? Break it down into a smaller chunk. No, I'm just going to crack open the book and at least read 2 pages. And then if I'm enjoying it, I'll probably keep reading and
this is good.
Read more.
Starting is everything for me too. Like if I haven't worked out in a while and I have to go do my body weight exercise down in our rec room or basement downstairs, I think, I don't want to do it. Don't want to do it. Now I just get the gym stuff on, the clothes and everything. I'll go down there and I'll say, well, I'll just do 20 push-ups to start. Just that. And then once I've done that, I go, since I'm down here, I want to do some arm circles with some light weights just to loosen the shoulders. Before long, I've done 4 kinds of push-ups. I've done 200 squats and I feel fantastic.
Exactly.
Because just that first thing, it's like it breaks the seal.
Bare minimum is a really nice. And I know this concept, a lot of these concepts that we'll talk about in one video will bleed across into another video. So you'll get to learn it again. But doing the bare minimum is an absolutely wonderful way to avoid procrastination, to turn procrastination into enjoyable action because it's just the bare minimum.
But there's times you probably wouldn't want to do this. Like if your wife says to you, Chris, I want you to clean the whole house and cut the grass. And you say, you know what, honey, I'm going to do the bare minimum. I'm just going to cut a little bit of area and I guess that's good enough.
Start with the bare minimum when it's, exactly. Like when it's for you, if it's your significant other, if it's your boss asking you to do something and you're going to get yourself fired by doing the bare minimum and say, I meant to do the rest next week.
Maybe you talk them into firing you the bare minimum. Like just you're only fired on Mondays.
Yeah, you'll have the bare minimum severance.
Yeah.
There you go. So,
excellent, guys.
I hope that helps. Get yourself taking some action. Procrastination turns into enjoyable action, and have fun doing what you do best. We'll see you in the next video.
Thanks again.
once again.
And good night.